for joining us for today's episode. Ran into a few technical difficulties during our interview with Joel, but so through the middle, it might sound a little repetitive a couple of times where I kind of go over some same things when I'm talking about my current program at Peace. But it shouldn't be too much. And thank you again for coming to watch us, and thanks Joel again for coming on.
Welcome back to another edition to the In the Game interview series. We've got with us today Joel Bancroft. Joel, thank you for taking some time to talk with us. Why don't you give us some of your background?
Yeah, it's good to be here. Good to spend some time with you. Little background. I would say that at a very young age, kind of fell in love with the game, and really at the push of a mother who was a nurse and said, look, football's not going to be your path, so you better figure it out another way. And that became soccer. And so, wonderful relationships as a player, both in high school and college, and somewhat of a club experience. I grew up in Maine, so we were just kind of forming clubs when I was breaking out, and enjoyed it all. And, kind of got to the end of my collegiate career and degree in hand, and really wasn't sure what path I wanted to take. And I was lucky to have a former coach who was coaching at a high school and said, why don't you come coach the JV team? And at the time, it was the last thing I thought I would ever do. But I loved it. And so that jumped into a whole other different stratosphere of club and licensure and being an assistant, and then eventually coaching in college. And those travels have taken me several places in Maine and a few out of the state, Pennsylvania and Massachusetts. And currently I'm at St. Anselm, coaching the women there. So loving every minute.
Very nice, very nice. How long have you been at St. Anselm?
Yeah, so we've got 3 years under our belt. It was, I think about 3 years ago in December that I took the job. So this spring we were gearing up for year 4.
Yeah, I think we're kind of in the same boat. I took over a piece that same kind of time frame, that December 3 years ago. So, I think how has the program changed since you've taken it over?
Yeah, so really lucky. The school itself is a high academic, big nursing, political science, but it's just beautiful. The backdrop is Goffstown / Manchester, New Hampshire, and I think the change happened in our athletic department. And so about 4.5 years ago, I think St. A's was making a decision whether they were going to reaffiliate Division III or continue Division II. And so that obviously took time, but through that, they hired a new athletic director, and basically under his leadership, he systematically, sport by sport, has doubled down and invested more. And you've seen our athletic programs rise, and we're no different. I'm the first full-time coach that the program's ever had. And so in the past 3 years, we've been fortunate to hit some milestones and become a bit more competitive in what is a very competitive Division II conference. So it's been fun to be part of the build.
Very nice. Yeah, I think, in the South, we don't get to hear about a lot of, when you think Northeast, you think Division I, Division III, but it's great to hear that there's some Division II schools that are doing very, very well up there as well.
Yeah, it's the NE10. I mean, I've had the privilege to coach in the America East and the Big Ten. And look, the NE10 has got wonderful diversity, both the men and women. National champions have come out of both those leagues. And so every match day, it's going to be different. You've got a bunch of schools that are, really high academic and aesthetically beautiful, and the style of soccer that they employ are going to be different than some of the other schools that have a really heavy international influence. And so you can't get comfortable, and you just got to be prepared to play in a multitude of ways. So I love it. It's been great for me.
Nice. What, you're talking about playing styles there a little bit. How do you like to play with your teams?
Yeah, it's so it's so interesting. I also have the benefit of watching your last two interviews, so I know what's coming, and so I've given this a bunch of thought. And I think anyone that knows me would classify me as possession laden and trying to be expansive, but I also think that at our level, there's a weight on results. And so, I've always said, if you can just go from your goalkeeper to your center forward and put the ball in the back of the net, why wouldn't you do that? Now, obviously teams don't allow for that, but I definitely think that I am in my current, I guess, phase of coaching where we try to keep our movement off the ball. We try to really stress. But I will say that we kind of take it game by game, and where we have a default style of play, and that's how we train, and that's what we'd like to do. But we've also never been fearful of saying, look, we need to change this a little bit to get a result today. And so while that adds more work, I also think that there's a great deal of confidence our players gain from it once we find some success in doing so.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I try to tell my players, and obviously we're in the building phase of a Division III program where, my first year we kind of just wanted to solidify the program, and then my second year we've really improved the program, and now we're a team that can actually play a little bit. But we always tell them, our style of play is that we don't want to have a style of play. We want to take what the opponent's given us and we want to exploit it. So I think that, especially in the college game, it's an interesting situation because it's creeping down to Division III now. It's very results driven business, so you have to really be pragmatic and be able to, this is my philosophy, and I want to keep the ball, and we want to do this, and we want to do that, but we've also got to get results, and we've got to make sure that we're making the best decisions to do that.
Yeah, I'd be curious to ask you, Reed, because I think just in taking a look at your history. So, obviously you guys had the best year that the program's ever had last year. You made the playoffs, and everything is green arrows and pointing up, rookie of the year. But like for you, did you step into that program with an idea of how you'd like to play, but also understanding that, look, it may take a couple years for me to get that because I need different personalities and personnel. And so I also need to take a look at the group I have and play to their strengths. Like, how was that process for you?
Yeah, I think it's definitely an interesting process. So when I took the program over in December 3 years ago, like we were talking about, we had 9 players on the roster and we had 2 commits. So that first spring was very much just go bust my butt, recruit, try to get in numbers, try to get in players. And out of those 9, we had some players on the team that weren't, in my opinion, truly soccer players. They were there to kind of help with numbers. So, it was a very challenging spring. So, I was lucky, we had somebody local with our assistants are very much part-time. So they get paid, I think, like $7,000 over the year. So they've got a lot of other things going on. So I was very, very lucky to have a younger coach in the area that I'd worked with previously. He had been a volunteer assistant, well, a student assistant really, at my previous school whenever I was the assistant coach. So as soon as I got the job, he hit me up and was like, hey, I'd love to come work with you. So really that spring we let him train the team because it was all small sessions anyways. And, we trained in the mornings in the gym. It was just trying to get them as best technically as we could. And that's right up his alley. So I really let him just do that. And I hit the recruiting trail and went anywhere I could locally because, it wasn't worth me taking big trips to get those numbers into a program in that shape. So we were able to get in 8. So we played with 17 my first year, and it was just how can we set ourselves up to be successful. So we played an extremely low block. everybody basically underneath the underneath the center. Sorry, some technical difficulties there. So yeah, so my first year at Peace, it was very much just we brought in some players that very much were good for the program. We only had one goalkeeper, so training was very much if you get close to our goalkeeper, you're getting yelled at because we did not want to have to put a field player in the goal. But we signed her late, and that was a good pickup for us late as well. But we improved by 40 goals on the year before, so I think that was really, really good progress. And it was one of my favorite years coaching, actually, because it was very, very challenging, but it was very rewarding at the same time. And that's actually probably one of my favorite teams that I've ever coached. And then last year we were able to we really hit recruiting very, very hard during that first year, and got some players to really buy in for the vision of we did much better our first year, but we're going to continue to push in that direction. And this past year we were able to bring in 14, so we solidified the program even better there with the players, and it was a good experience for us last year.
Yeah, so last year we were able to bring in 14, and we were extremely successful in some of the players that we were able to get and the quality that we were able to get in the recruiting class, and that allowed us to really continue to push to be successful. And obviously, we talk about having the record number of wins in the season for the conference, or for both in the conference and in total. But it's still very much a stepping stone for us. We're 7-11-1, and obviously that's, in my opinion, that's mediocre. Obviously it's great for us, and we're improving to that, but it's still not where we want to be as a program, and the girls have really, really bought into that. They enjoyed the season, but they know that there's still a lot more out there for us.
It's great.
Yeah. So, how was your fall?
It was good. I'll tell you, I've had to sit with the most interesting couple of months, because this year we only lost 3 games, and so on its face, and this is a group that the year before return to the postseason, most wins in the conference, like they hit a lot of historical milestones that they've not ever reached. And so, we follow that up, and 3 losses for us is another historical milestone within our league. And so, but the other side is we were 7-3-7. So we had 7 draws, and we went to extra time 9 times, and we never lost. And so you've got all these positives, but those 7 draws put us outside of the playoff picture. And so, in fact, it's the first time in the history of the league that a team with only 3 losses has never made the postseason. So, on one hand, you point to all those moments, and there are several where, you're up with a minute left and you concede and you end up with 1 instead of 3, or maybe you should have finished it out. But on the other hand, the 2 teams that played in our conference final and the one that went on to, I think, the Elite 8, we took points from them at their place. Like, we drew with both of them. And so it's such a confliction. And maybe at first I thought it was my age, because I'm getting older, but look, I just have a hard time looking at it and saying this isn't a success. Like, how can you not find it at some level to be successful? We're playing the best soccer that we've ever played. The team tactically understands more than they ever have before, but everyone wants to go to the postseason, right? And continue. And I think that we just felt that if we could just crack open that door, the 8 teams that made it, I think we had taken points from 5 or 6 of them. And so, so I think it was good, but I do think that there's an undercurrent when you speak with the players and the staff of maybe we left a little bit on the table. I feel like I've now kind of worked through that The competitor in me has kind of been suppressed, and I just have gotten to the places we broke down. You know, we spent a lot of time in the final third, but the choices that we made were not good enough, and in some of the build-up. And so it's a stepping stone, hopefully, to even more success.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't consider myself an old coach by any means, but I don't know if my heart could take 9 overtimes.
I'll tell you, it was just, I've never been involved in anything like it. It's so bizarre. And then you start getting into the interesting things of, you know, we've now played an extra game and a half. And so how does that figure into our recovery and the physiological piece? And what does that do to the first years that are playing big minutes? And so it was just a completely different animal that, like everything in coaching, will be better for it. But it's tricky to go through.
Yeah, I would say so for sure. And I think we played 2 overtimes this past year, and that was enough for me.
Yeah.
So, you know, you talked a little bit about licensure. What courses have you done?
So really early, I was blessed to be around a pretty impressive coaching tree, even though I was in Maine. And so they kind of pushed us to the USSF licensure. And so within a span of, I think, 4 years, what was then the F license, I think they're the youth modules, they probably changed again. But I did my F, E, D, C, and B, like back to back to back to back to back. And so, and it's even that, people ask me all the time, because we've gone through waves, right? We've gone through USSF, NSCA, and they were kind of differing opinions about what track to go and what it meant if you went one or the other. And now I feel like we're almost in a completely different era where things like this and podcasts and availability, where there are folks that are not seeking licensure within the US, or maybe they are outside. And so I'm not sure there's one right or wrong track, but what I always say to folks is that the relationships that I built in those courses, I feel like they're still not only present, but they're integral to where I am. You know, I mean, I went and ended up being on the staff at Penn State because I was in my B license and C license with the head coach. And then, you know, when I come to UMass Lowell, it's the same thing. She gives me a reference, you know, and I mean, it goes on and on and on, where you just connect. And so I'm not sure what the right or wrong content is. I think that it was a nice basis for me to figure out how to set things up, 4v4 and 9v9, 11v11, and things of that nature. Things have changed. I think that the game is so fluid itself that I would never be so concrete in saying you must do things. But I'm really thankful that I did. And now I think I seek out education because it's so readily accessible in other forms. Like I'm doing Oliver Gage's match analysis online stuff right now, and that Gary Cunine happens to introduce me to, and it's fantastic, you know. And I just took in Gary put out something on corner kicks, which was a real Achilles heel for us. Like we earned a bunch, but really didn't convert as many, and it was awesome. And so I think it's such a cool time we're living in that we can do this. Like you and I probably wouldn't talk, especially in the middle of a pandemic, unless we can connect like this. So that's kind of, I guess, my all-around position on just education. Get as much as you can.
Yeah, and I think Gary's got some great resources there with the Modern Soccer Coaching platform. You know, I think I was lucky enough to coach against Gary whenever he was still in the D2 world, and he was always a great person to pick somebody's brain, and you know, he's a great guy. So I think he's done very, very well with his promotion and getting information out there. You know, and I think you can get information from anywhere at this point. You know, I think that there's a ton out there, and you know, that's kind of what this is just hoping to be as well, is just get it out there and let coaches do what they will with it. You know, and hopefully they find something that will help them, allow them to grow and be better, and you know, and help continue to grow the game.
Yeah, you know, I've seen a couple of comments or emails and stuff, and at first I was taken aback, but then I kind of thought it through about coaches saying, look, there's a lot of stuff, especially now, because a lot of people are giving their content for free, which I think is admirable. It's almost like we're drinking from a fire hose. But I do think that – I think it's the lesser of two evils. I think 10 or 15 years ago, if you went down to the grassroots level, you kind of look and said, maybe there's a disconnect. Maybe there's just a well-intentioned dad who steps up to allow or mom rather, who steps up to allow a team to exist. And now you're getting all this information. And so, I feel I'm currently a technical director at a local club, and, every team I see, or a majority of it, tries to build out of the back, which I think is great personally. But the break is almost in the same spot for me every time. So you've got this big expansive shape, and the goalkeeper puts it down, and they roll it to the center back, and maybe it goes to the outside back, or maybe it goes somewhere to the six. And then it's what's next that it's always, not always, because some people are doing it really well, but I would say that's where I'm not sure people are investing as much time. It's okay, well, we get that it's going to be 4v3. And so what are we rushing for? And we all watch Barcelona and Liverpool and all these teams that are doing this now and this influence. But how we get into the midfield, and then more importantly, how do we get out of it, seems to be a real breakdown at the youth level. Like what happens next, and what's the movement? And so I guess for me, with all this information, the pledge would be, can you drill down a little bit more? Like topically, we got some of the great ideas and concepts, but can we spend a little bit more time to figure out the next 1, 2, or 3 phases to improve players, particularly at the youth level?
Yeah, and I think one of my pet peeves in that, and this is something that we work with my younger ODP team over the last couple of years that I had for North Carolina. And we were very much, we want to build, we want to try to play and be good technical players. But when a team recognizes it after your second goal kick that you're going to play, and they go to press you, now how do we adjust to that, and how do we shape it to where now we can use that to our advantage? We pull them out. Now, can we skip a level, and can we play through the space they've now given us by coming to press us?
Yeah, it was. I'll tell you, that's good insight. One of the big challenges last spring, we had this wonderful center back who, could not be more industrious if she tried. Scratched herself onto the all-conference team, and her story is remarkable. Where she comes out of high school and she wasn't sure she was even going to play college soccer. Was going to be a nurse. Ended up on the team before I got there, and just flowered into everything you'd want a center back to be. But we're watching teams step on us, right? And her ability to drive a bigger ball over the top was really the challenge. Like we couldn't, okay, we're watching it, but can we now connect? Because now they're all in our end, and we've got to do that. And so teams would watch that and say, look, they're not super comfortable with these players in the back to really hit a big ball, so let's keep stepping. And that was kind of a 6 or 7 week process of how do we solve this? Like, I don't think we deviate away from our buildup, but we've got to be able to your point, recognize, hey, we're no longer playing in front of the team. We need to play behind them,
Yeah.
So it's an interesting to be able to take away and adjust, I think, is far more important than to roll out this expansive model of play if it's not an appropriate choice for your team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's got to be a level of pragmatism. If you don't have the most technical players, maybe you don't put them in that position. I always tell my teams, you might not like the way that we play because we might not be able to play the style of Barcelona and Bayern and those big clubs that can just knock it. But I'm gonna make a decision that allows us to be successful.
Yeah.
Because the worst thing I can do as a coach is put players in a system that sets them up to fail, because now they're gonna get their confidence is gonna take a big hit. They're gonna get pissed off at me, and then the whole thing falls apart, right?
Yep. Agreed.
So, what's one of your favorite activities to do with your teams?
I'll tell you, I again thought about this a while. I think that one of the most consistent things that we've done, which again, like all things great in this sport, was stolen is we play a game called transition boxes. And basically, it's 2 boxes with a 15 to 20 yard gap, depending on where we are kind of in the week. It can be smaller or bigger. And I just think it has everything you're going to see in the game. It's in essence a small-sided game within the box. You pick your head up. Can you connect to the center forward, which is at the top of the other box, and then you run out of your box to support it. So you've got combination play, you've got movement, you've got overloads, and the defenders are just trying to destroy. If you make a mistake, they knock it down, they knock it to the coach, and we go again. And so I think that it just brings so many aspects of the game out that regardless of where we are or what we're doing, or even whether I've got like a senior group club-wise, 16 to 18, or my college team, that always finds a way to work itself in.
Yeah, I do tons of transitional play with my teams at all levels. I just feel like it's something that you can always be better at, and in that first 3 seconds when you win the ball and when you turn it over, those are times that decide games. Because, obviously we want to keep the ball, but if we lose it, how quickly can we get numbers to it, and how quickly can we get it back? So, and then once we've won it, how quickly can we find that new space? How quickly can we open the field up?
Yeah, that concept of, or at least relaying it to the players of, look, if we win the ball higher up the field, we don't have to drop in and defend. Like, we can just transition again to attacking. So if you can get some more enthusiasm as a front line to, hey, we lost it, or even as a 10 or an 8 or whoever, let's win it here versus having to drop in and organize. And then you start to really break it down and show them, when we do it well in this match, we ran a total of X. When we didn't do it well in this match, we ran, and you start to break it down to, you're going to run more potentially, you're in your own half. It's like you just have to get that switch to go on, and then they become really savage about it. But for me anyway, that's the part of creating the association of let's win it now, because I think that we're just so, it's such a doctrine of we've lost it, can we organize, can we become tight, let's not get played through, that it's going to take, I think, some generations or at least a couple years, and I think we're probably well into it, of the youth player immediately identifying, okay, we've lost it, can we win it back in the next 5 or 6 seconds?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's you talk about it, generationally taking some time, and I think that continues as we continue to build and have more informed, better coaches. I think I think that's something with a lot of these resources that hopefully will continue for sure. So, on the recruiting trail, what are some things that you typically look for in your players that you're recruiting?
Yeah, great question. So I think, again, we talked a bit earlier about maybe age shaping your scope or your lens. And so for me, I've been blessed to be part of several programs on the men's and women's side that have had a margin of success. But I will say, when we got to the end, at times it was, I'm not sure I want to be on the bus with this group every day, because maybe while we were winning matches, or we were placing, I guess, a real priority on matches, as a younger coach, I missed out in developing people. And so I think now that is much more important to me. Like, for sure, we want to win, and for sure we want to be competitive, and we've got big goals in that area of our program. But at the end of the day, for 2 reasons. One, because our college right now is extremely difficult in its academic endeavors, so I would never want to set someone up for failure. And 2, I just want to be around good people, and I guess, who am I to judge a young person? But you kind of, you spend some time with them, and you spend some time with mom and dad and the family, and you chat with the coaches, and then you kind of see them, how they warm up and how they address themselves when their teams are down and stuff. And for me, I get a picture, and so that's a big part. Now, for sure, look, you've got to bring the other pieces to the table. You've got to be able to play at the level in which we compete at. But that is probably my biggest non-starter. Is, I think 30-year-old Joel would have looked at a player and said, little disrespectful, but I can fix that. 44-year-old Joel doesn't feel like he's as good of a psychologist as 30-year-old Joel did. So, I just feel like that's job one. And then, in the past couple of years, we needed to become more athletic to compete in our league. We've got at least 5 or 6 programs that are fully funded. And so we don't have a league minimum, if you will, of scholarships. So it varies. And so before we could talk about any type of wonderful tactics or technique, we need to be able to catch up to the ball. And so we've addressed that. And now as we start to layer, I think our recent layer and what we've realized as we talked about the draws is we needed to bring in a little bit more goal scoring. So I think that in other areas we've made great strides. But so, do you have a bit of a nose for the net? Do you enjoy taking players on and getting around them, super comfortable on the ball, things of that nature. So I think that that's probably my current state of affairs. And I guess maybe just to add some balance to that, I've also never been one where you have to be 6 feet tall or you have to be of a certain thing. Like, I just think I've seen so many players that if they have the fire inside them, that's the number one to be successful, and they're willing to put forth the effort and the understanding and the execution. So I've seen some 6-foot players that aren't super motivated. And so it's nice if you get it all in one package, but it's rare that you do.
Yeah, for sure. I think, size is, it can be a great gift, but it's not a necessity for sure. I think, when we go through the recruiting process at Peace, we look for 3 things. We call it checking the 3 boxes. The first off, are they a good person? Second off, are they good academically? And third off, are they good on the field? I think so. We talk about those are the 3 pillars for our program. And if you can check all those three boxes, then you're somebody that we're interested in.
I'll tell you, I think too, and this might just be my experience. One of our biggest recruiting positions has nothing to do with me, and that is our nursing program is one of the best in the country. And so we've been able to identify some players, some student athletes that had multiple D1 offers at really good nursing schools and could see the big picture better than I ever could when I was 18, and said, I'd rather play D2 and be at the best nursing school. And so we've been able to really capture some players that made really mature decisions, then believe more in our future and part of our present than someone pitching them and saying, look, we've won 8 championships, we have nursing, you should come. And so, and I mention that because I never would have had the maturity as an 18-year-old player to say no to a bigger program that was offering me, a spot on the roster, and in some cases, athletic scholarship, to say, you know what, I want to be at a place where 100% of the nurses passed the national exam versus 70, 80, and 90%. So I give them a lot of credit. As I said, it has very little to do with me, but that's been a big area for us to catch up quickly.
Yeah, I mean, nursing is a huge draw, especially on the female side of the game. I've been unfortunate. Both of the schools that I've worked at don't have nursing, or they had the RN to BSN, which doesn't really affect too many undergrads. So
sure.
But yeah, I think that's something that on the recruiting trail I've seen quite a bit is there are a lot of young female players that want to go into the medical field, nursing. We have pre-med, but no nursing, no, unfortunately. So, what's one of your favorite coaching memories?
Yeah, so you know what, I think for me, there are 6 or 7 that stick out, but they all have one kind of underlying theme, and that was we were not supposed to have any business in being there. And so for me, I think growing up in Maine, which was never a soccer hub, like every place it's getting much better, whether it was my club team, my ODP team, or my college teams, we were rarely the favorite. And so I really relish preparing a team to play in a match that folks think we have no business getting any points in. And so, and that was at various levels. I mean, look, it was great to watch my Penn State group beat Florida State in the national semifinal. I don't think many folks gave us a chance there, but I got the same feeling when I was a men's coach at Southern Maine Community College, and we beat Unity in the finals. 2 years ago, we played Southern New Hampshire. We share the same city, which is Manchester. So it's a local heated rivalry. And we beat them in the first time in a while. And so all those games, there were different twists and turns, but really for me, to boil it down, there was a moment in every one of those games where your preparation and your players' belief came together, and you could see it in their eyes. And then all of a sudden, once you cross that bridge, it doesn't guarantee you a result, but you just realize you've got something special that day, and you can do something special that day. And so those are the moments that I've held dearly. Another one I'd be remiss not to bring up. I coached the St. Joe's College team that, we had a huge semifinal win. We went down to a school that was, again, hugely successful. And the cool thing about that was St. Joseph's College was it was a Catholic school. And so we had created such a buzz and a following that year that we had multiple buses come down, and it was just filled with like nuns and priests. And it was such a cool thing where to just experience it through the eyes of this community was special, and I'm still connected to those people. And so I'm not sure what it would be like to be favored every year and win year in and year out. I'm sure there are, distinct and unique pressures there that make it rewarding to do it. But for me, I've always been a bit of an underdog. And so that's my moment, I guess. How about yourself, Reed?
Yeah, I think, kind of hitting on, what you're talking about. You can just see it in your players' eyes. We had one of those moments this past year that was, it was a really, really fun match to be a part of on our side. We were playing against one of my good friends. We worked in the same club at the time, and we had never beaten. So it was against North Carolina Wesleyan. We'd never beaten them in program history. Obviously, our history hasn't been great, but we're getting better. We went in to the locker room at halftime, tied 0-0, and I looked around the locker room, and I was like, we're going to win this game, guys. I'm telling you right now. Something's going to happen. We're going to win this game. And we went out in the second half, had our player that got Rookie of the Year for the conference this year, takes a ball off of a kid at midfield, takes 2 touches, and the keeper's called on the top of the 18 and just lobs her from 40 yards out. And, of course, we go nuts. And then probably 10, 15 minutes later, goalkeeper's taking a goal kick, puts the ball down, sees our center forward is 1v1, absolutely pings it. Center forward lets the ball bounce probably 5 yards in front of her, spins out, runs in behind. Center back misses the ball. She's in 1v1, finishes it off. We end up winning the game 2-0. And it was that was really kind of, with our team this year, we talked about it's a new piece. We're not what we have been, and that really solidified it. And I think not just to our girls, but to the conference and some of the other coaches that have been around as well. So I think it was kind of walking on sunshine for a couple of days after that.
I'll tell you what's so interesting, and the cool thing about videotaping this is, I can't see myself, but I'm sure that I was similar. Just watching you describe it, like your emotion. People ask why we coach, and I know that that's one of your questions. Like, my wife is an amazing bank manager, but she doesn't get that emotion when she closes a loan. Like she gets a similar emotion when she can help someone get into their first house and what have you. But I'm months and years away from some of the stories I just shared, and I have chicken skin talking about it.
Yeah.
And I hope everyone gets that feeling about what they do, because that to me it's a calling and it's not a job. And like, I could just see it in your face. It was like I was there with you in the build up, and like, it's just, and then another piece is that you transition with your team from being something that's possible and that they have to believe in your message to something that happened and it's concrete, and now you can build upon it. You now have this point of reference where you can say, look, it's not we can beat them, we have beat them, and this is how we did it, and you can do it again. It's just, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. It's the same reason why my wife makes fun of me. I still wake up and I watch ESPN, and right now I'm watching axe throwing and like NBA guys playing video games. It's just part of my day, and so I miss it. You know, we started off air talking, and the first thing you said was, I miss it. And I felt that too. Like, I just can't wait to get back to my players, get back to what we're trying to do. And I'm sure everyone feels that way.
Yeah. I think it's such a different, it's more than a profession, you know, it's a lifestyle. And, you know, people, my wife, when we don't do well and when we lose matches, I typically wear it. And my son jokes, my son's 8, and he joked with me the other last fall. He made a comment that really cracked me up. I walked in and I had a smile on my face, and he said, "Dad, you guys played well, didn't you?" I said, "Yeah, we played really well, son." And for an 8-year-old to be able to figure that out, you know, it really kind of puts things in perspective, that it's not a 9 to 5 job where you walk out at 5 o'clock on Friday and you're not going to think about your job for a weekend or a couple days. You know, it's a part of who we are. You know, it's something very, very different, and I'm kind of struggling to put it into words a little bit, but it's something that just it just goes with you, you know.
And it's incredible, and you just brought up a good point, that you're so connected, you're so invested, and we're just so thankful. And in my case, my wife and my 2 dogs are next to me now. They're always next to me, but like, we bring that home, and we have to be mindful of what we bring home, and you know, and how we decompress, and what, you know, what, like, my wife, I mean, she goes to the matches and things of that nature, and she's also at a place now where she knows enough where it's scary. She's starting to talk in terms of, why did you go here and why didn't you play this player? And I'm like, oh geez. But you know,
critiqued at home now too.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, like, we just transfer that weight onto our family. So to recognize that, and to also, you know, communicate about that, there's no us without them. And so it's an important piece. As a young coach, I didn't identify it as much, but it's something I try to share with, now my players are going on to coaching and what have you. And it's an important piece to make sure you're taking care of your spouse, your children, and what have you, because they're the ones that take care of us.
Yeah. No, I can completely agree. You know, I tell my wife all the time, and we have the same conversation every August. You know, I'm like, well, it'd be good to see you in 2 months, because you know, we don't work without her. And when I say we, I mean my family. I'm extremely fortunate. I've got a great family. It'll be very interesting next year because my stepdaughter is going to be coming to play for us at Peace.
Wow.
So that'll be an even more of a family affair. Not that they come to all of our home games, and usually we tailgate and do all that fun stuff. And you know, it'll be interesting to have Megan join us. You know, I coached her club team last fall as well, which that's the first time she's played for me, truly, since she was in the youth academy. Whenever I was one of the youth coaches as well. So.
Sure.
So that was a great experience, and you know, it kind of gave me some insight as well as to how some of the things that I can say as a coach can be taken. You know, because there was plenty of car rides when we were on the way back home, and I was like, well, what did the girls think when I said this? And because now I'm getting a true player's perspective back. You know, obviously we've got a great relationship, so she feels very, very comfortable talking to me about those kind of things. So. I think it's just another way for me to self-reflect, which, I think the self-reflection and the decompression parts are very, very big pieces of what we do for sure.
Absolutely.
So, what do you feel is one of the most important pieces of being a coach?
Yeah, for me, without a doubt, it's the relationships. And like I said, if to the left and right of me was 30-year-old Joel and 35-year-old Joel, you would have got different answers. But 44-year-old Joel, look, we all want to win. And I would say, when I say relationships, I mean coaches, referees, players, parents. Look, they're not all going to be great for sure. In anything you do, there's going to be difference of opinions. But I just feel like it's what I shared with you with players. Like I'm at a place now where I would 100% ride the bus 10-6 playoff bound than 16-0 toxic culture. And I feel the same way about at times some silliness of I coach for this club, you coach for that club. So, it just and look, full transparency, I fell victim to it many times as a younger coach, because I think it presses buttons, because as a competitor, we're also loyal. And so when we are at a school, it's the best school or the best club, and what you're doing over there isn't going to measure up. And so I think it's short-sighted. So for me, it's relationships, it's connection with the players. And something interesting has happened, at least for me, I'm sure smarter folks figured out long before I did, is that even though I'm prioritizing relationships, my connections are stronger, and now my players' output is far greater. So then we're winning more anyway. It was like, so basically, just like I thought, I was probably the one in the way, or needed to improve. And so, it's taking a long view, but I wouldn't have it any other way. And it's something that, like I said, we're in a cool place now where, like, a lot of former players are high school coaches and they're starting their college coach career. So, I get to chat with them and I get to learn from them. And that's the thing that I tell them, that even folks that on your team, look, they're never going to be my best friend. Like, and we all know that in your cohorts and your groups, you're going to have that. Just to go out of your way and be friendly and nice and just treat things with enthusiasm, I've just learned is the much better approach. The much better. How about yourself, Reed?
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you. I think the relationship piece, I keep coming back to this saying, and people that have watched most of these, they're probably going to get tired of me saying it, but your players don't care what you know until they know that you care.
Yeah.
Until they know that you're truly invested in them and that you care about them, and taking the time to have conversations outside of the game of get to know them, and obviously we get to have those conversations in the recruiting process. Getting to know about their families and their situations and those things, and trying to do more of those things as a club coach as well. The relationship piece just can't be understated. I think it's so important, and if you're not invested in that, then you really need to take a chance to really look at yourself and figure out why you're in it. And I think the ego piece, what you were talking about, I can have a huge ego at times, and it can really be a problem if it's not something that you take into account and really check. I was very fortunate that I had somebody early in my coaching career really check me and put me in my place and really pissed me off at the time, but it was a very important conversation that needed to be had. And it made me take a very, very different path in coaching and realize that it's not about me, it's about the players, and that's why we're there. And I want to do these great things, and I want to do this, and I want to do that. Well, hey, it's not about me.
Isn't it coach benched me because he heard me the game before. Some buddies had come to the game, and I said, yeah, by Saturday we're going to be 11-0, basically projecting that we're going to win the next game. And so, I come to the next game. I'm the captain. I play, and I'm not starting. And I'm like, what is this guy all about? And like the assistant coach said, well, he heard what you said, and you shouldn't be talking that way. And your emotion was perfect. I'm like, this guy, it went through, this guy's crazy. We're not going to win if I don't play. And then now with each day, like, it's one of the best lessons I was ever taught as a person. And I still go back to Charlie Miller, who went on to become a principal, and I chat via Facebook this day. Like, if someone didn't teach me that, I would be different today, And so I'm so thankful of that. And then kind of pairing back into what we were talking about, I feel anyway that the psychological piece, oftentimes if you look at like a document, you look at the pillars, they're either 4 pillars or 4 squares. And I think that really the psychological piece needs to be on the bottom, almost like a pyramid, and work your way up. Because I know that when you chat with youth players, especially in this day and age with the anxiety and stress and pressure, like, they are struggling by and large to deal with a lot of things. And if you don't have an understanding of what their days look like and what their challenges are, and you don't make that connection of someone that will be there through the rain and the sun, you can't develop that player as much. And so we've been putting a real lot of focus on that. And, like, what's going on with you as a person? How are you? Not as a player. Like, the conditioned response is, I'm good, let's lace them up. But no, what's going on? How are you? That's why a lot of these platforms in this day and age where you can, check in with like a wellness questionnaire, and we use Soccer Pulse. I've used Fit for 90 before. It just helps start conversations that you would never be able to get to because you have a roster of 28, 29 humans, and it's impossible to check in with each one of them 15 minutes every morning. So, but it's super important and will lead to better relationships 100%.
Yeah. We used Soccer Pulse this past year, and that was my first year really kind of using one of the wellness programs, and I think it was really, really beneficial to us, not just from a physical standpoint, but the psychological side as well, for sure.
Yeah.
So, well, Joel, we really, really appreciate you taking some time to talk with us today. Any last minute nuggets you have for young coaches?
Well, it was a real pleasure. And I think, like I said, in this day and age, just get online, get as much education as you can, find a good mentor, and make a bunch of mistakes, but enjoy making the mistakes. Like with each passing year, I look back all the time and say, 10 years ago, I'm not even sure how I won a match, and I hope 10 years from now, I say the same thing about the version of me right now. So this was great. We'll be following you in the fall. What a huge jump you made this year. And, we wish you all the best. If you ever get up in the Northeast or want to look at any players up here, however I can help you, just reach out. And what you're doing here is great. And I certainly will tune in to the upcoming interviews. I look forward to it. So thanks for the time, Reed.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. Looking forward to following you guys as well. Best of luck. And we'll definitely talk soon, okay?
Sounds good. Be well.